Welcome to an hour of HealthMade Radio. HealthMade is a community for natural health seekers where we educate people about common health conditions and share extensive research on the most effective natural health treatments and promote legislation that protects our health freedoms. A core concept belief is in the innate intelligence and healing power of the body, and if properly supported spiritually, emotionally, and nutritionally, it can find its way back to health. HealthMade Radio will bring you information from integrative health experts throughout the world. Health is what you make it. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt, and I will be your host. Today's guest is Dr. Tammi Baliszewski. Tammi Baliszewski, former model, actress, and now mandala facilitator, holistic life counselor, host of the very popular radio show Journey to Center on Empower Radio, best-selling author, artist, and the creator of a local non-profit organization called Art and Soul. Born and raised in Kansas, Baliszewski moved to Las Vegas at the age of 21 and embarked on a career of cosmetologist. After a short time, she found herself modeling, doing fitness, swimwear, calendar work, and trade shows. This led to opportunities in Los Angeles and was cast in Baywatch, commercials, and soap operas when she met her then-fiancé, Kelsey Grammer. Tammi Baliszewski has 2 PhDs, is an ordained minister, and the author of 2 books, Manifesting Love from the Inside Out, which Vanna White has touted as the best self-help book as she has ever read, and the best-selling Manifesting Prosperity from the Inside Out. Dr. Tammi's intention as an author, teacher, counselor, and radio host is to offer effective tools, share life-transforming techniques, reveal deep wisdom, and help anyone who wants to claim and experience a life of fulfillment, spiritual alignment, authentic power, and great love. To get a sense of what Baliszewski does, download her free ebook, The Path to Prosperity, which includes a guided meditation at www.tammibphd.com. You are the author, Tammi, of 2 very recognized books, Manifesting Love from the Inside Out and also Manifesting Prosperity from the Inside Out. What life experience do you have that make you the right person to write these books?
Well, Dr. Michael, that's a very good question. It's because I've suffered and struggled so much in both of these areas. Marianne Williams said something very interesting once. She said, no one can help the struggling alcoholic more than someone who's recovered from alcoholism. And I have struggled intensely in the area of relationships and have found my way through to the other side. And the same with prosperity and finances. Both of these areas were very, very challenging. And when I understood if I find my way through this, that one day I'll be able to be a touchstone and guide for others as they walk through this challenging terrain, I set a strong intention to learn and heal. And I think when we do set strong intentions and we remain committed and diligent and focused, the right teachers can show up, the right opportunities, the right books, the right classes. And it took me down a path, and I do feel I now do know a lot about this terrain and relationships and prosperity. My greatest hope and intention is to support others in getting through challenges and getting to a place of grace and ease and fulfillment.
So one of the challenges that you met early on in life, you thought you had found the love of your life, Kelsey Grammer, and everything was perfect. Financially, you were doing okay, and or I wouldn't say okay, you were doing great at that time. And all of a sudden, everything changed, and you all of a sudden had to take a deeper look at yourself as to who you were and what love, authentic love, truly is. What were some of the experience or the lessons that you learned, and what did you have to overcome in order to become who you are right now?
Well, it was challenging. I think so many of us grew up believing we're going to find the one and live happily ever after. And how can we be blamed if this is something we buy into? It's what we're taught when we look at fairy tales. It's what we see as we watch movies and films and read books. And I thought that's how it was going to work. I've seen it happen with friends, and so I met this wonderful man and was immediately attracted to him. We had a great rapport. We had great conversation, and we were attracted to each other. He proposed to me after 4 months, and it seemed we were on track for my happily ever after. Things started to chip away and fall apart, and there were cracks in the relationship, but I didn't think it was necessarily because he wasn't the right one. I thought we just had to work harder. We were in therapy. I thought we could get through this. But as time went on, I feel I moved further and further away from my soul. And pretty soon I didn't recognize myself any longer. I was extremely depressed. My health was failing. No part of my life felt good. People would tell me I was lucky, and I would think to myself, they may think so. It may look okay from the outside looking in, but I cry every day. And it got to the point I was in so much pain, I finally had a conversation with God, and I said, look, God, if this isn't where you want me, please make it clear, because I don't think I can keep doing this. I had a sense that I was going to get sicker, that I may end up with cancer or something. Disease is dis-ease when we are uneasy within ourselves. And I was extremely uneasy, and I didn't know how much worse it could be and me still survive. Almost as soon as I uttered that prayer, life went a very different direction, and he met someone else, and it was over. And what I came to realize as I did my work was that I wasn't on solid ground within myself. I wasn't in a place of respect for myself. I didn't know myself deeply. I didn't like myself necessarily. I didn't love myself unconditionally. And so I realized that that was going to be the next relationship that I was going to focus on and work on. And I think sometimes we have to go off track to set an intention, a very different intention. And when I meditated and said, God, how do I find a man who truly loves me, adores me, and cherishes me? What I heard so clearly was learn to love, adore, and cherish yourself. So that became my priority and intention.
It's fascinating to me because we are such a society that always looks outward for what we're wanting to achieve. We're always reading tabloids, we're watching movies, we're watching TV, and we see these famous individuals and they're successful, and we're always wanting to become that. We're always looking outward instead of connecting with ourselves. And in your book, you really talk about the manifestation from what's within. So what does it mean from you or for you to manifest from inside out instead of what we're so trained to do, to look outward for what we're wanting to aspire to?
Yeah, I think it is very natural to set goals for ourselves and chase and look for things outside of ourselves. We live on a planet with Maya, which is considered illusion. Buddha will say there is no out there. The world is a manifestation of our mind. Jesus, another great master, says the kingdom of heaven is within. But it sure seems as human beings that we look for things outside of ourselves. We want to achieve those goals, to experience that sense of happiness. And again, it's natural, and it's often not until we have done that we realize there is no true fulfillment from the outside in. It is from the inside out. Because really, if you think about it, Dr. Michael, how do you feel happiness from out there? Happiness can only be experienced within ourselves. So if we're trying to grab that dangling carrot to finally experience happiness, even if we get it, we may not have that sense of fulfillment or satisfaction that we anticipate. And maybe we have to try that to realize this isn't working. And if it's not this, what is it? So to me, happiness is really coming into alignment with my soul self, with our higher self, and with Source. It comes from that sense of connection to the universe and seeing the God wings and experiencing the grace. To me, true happiness comes from that feeling of being in relationship and in a cosmic love affair with that something greater. And that truly is the deeper experience of joy and bliss that does come from being in that congruent relationship with our soul self, our heart, and on that solid ground of knowing ourselves, liking ourselves, and loving ourselves.
I know these are things that we read in books, and we a lot of us want to aspire to, but how do we do it? I mean, what are some practical steps to be able to achieve that connection with ourselves, to be able to be that authentic individual and that love, experience that love affair with yourself? How do we do that?
Well, I think, again, that's a really good question, Dr. Michael, and I think it comes from setting the intention. I think there's two ways to live our lives: running from ourselves or running to ourselves. Running from ourselves can include distracting ourselves with any number of things: shopping, eating, even working out, looking for relationships. I was a love addict. Any kind of addiction or obsession with anything outside of ourselves is a way of distracting ourselves, maybe from our pain or for chasing anything to satisfy the appetite that we have for whatever it is that we think we're hungry for. The other way we can live is running to ourselves, and it's not necessarily something that is natural. We're not hardwired for this kind of work. We're hardwired to survive. We're not hardwired to thrive. Our brains haven't changed that much in the last 25,000 years, where we were running from predators. We're fear-based by nature. So if we want to get to the higher ground of thriving, we have to come into alignment with our soul and with love. And it takes, again, setting the intention, starting to turn inward. Meditation is a great way to start. And often it seems the more we need it, the more we resist it. The more pain we're in, the more we want to outrun that pain. But there is no relief from running from ourselves. True healing, true fulfillment, coming into that alignment and finding happiness comes from coming back to ourselves, settling into our heart, setting that intention to know ourselves more deeply, love ourselves more unconditionally, to start asking ourselves the question, who am I? What honors me? How can I take better care of myself? How can I be more kind and loving with myself? And guided meditations are another great way of helping us slow down and focus our mind and start to turn inward and start to cultivate that relationship with our inner reality, our subconscious mind, and our soul self.
Wonderful. I'd love to, when we come back with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski, I want to hear more about these tools that you're suggesting, like guided meditations and connecting with your inner child, your inner being. We'll be right back with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski. We're back with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski. You were talking about some powerful tools in regards to being able to kind of connect with ourselves and develop that love affair with who we are, instead of living in that looking outside fear for what is attacking us and trying to create all these defense mechanisms and defense systems in order to be able to survive our external environment, and then instead going internally. You mentioned something like guided meditations. How can they help? What are they, and what do they do for us?
The guided meditations are simply meditating with a guide. And so often, especially as a beginner, it can be challenging to turn inward and slow down those busy beta brainwave states and relax more into the alpha theta states. So a guided meditation is a situation where you have somebody speaking to you, something for your mind to focus on. So you're not zoning out. Meditation is about focus, not just relaxing and floating away. I mean, that can eventually we can get to the place that happens. But initially, we have to give our mind something to connect with and to focus on. So a guided meditation can take us on an inner journey where we're starting to tap into the content of the subconscious mind. We can also start to tap into our deeper inner wisdom. And depending on what kind of person you are, perhaps you're a visual person. As you listen to a guided meditation, you may see images or colors. Perhaps you're kinesthetic and you'll feel a tingling in your head or your hands or somewhere in your body. If you're auditory, perhaps you're going to hear messages start to bubble up. So people can experience these very differently, but there are meditations, guided meditations, for anybody and everybody that wants to start to cultivate a more open relationship, again, with their subconscious mind and superconscious mind or soul self.
And what do these, you said subconscious, superconscious, soul self, what do these mean? What's the difference between them?
Sure. Because, well, we are personalities or egos. We have conscious mind. We have a conscious mind, a subconscious mind, and a superconscious mind. If you think about an iceberg, you can see the tip of the iceberg above the ocean, and that is like our conscious mind. Beneath that is the subconscious mind, the underneath part of the iceberg. That is our subconscious mind, and it's much greater, much more significant than what we see of the conscious mind. And then if you think of the ocean, that's like the superconscious mind. So if we're just trying to navigate from our conscious mind, we're not going to be really that effective or powerful in our lives. We want to be able to go deeper and access the subconscious, the content that perhaps we were born with. Maybe we bring in karma, so that's part of the subconscious mind. The things that we learned as children that was very powerful, that is in the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is also responsible for the beating of our heart, breathing, our body systems. So it's obviously and clearly a very important aspect of who we are. So we want to make friends with it. We want to know that this is on our side. But often things can be buried in there. We don't remember. We don't have conscious access to it. And it's sort of like pulling our strings from behind the scenes. Another thing I think is, consciously we may want something, and on a superconscious level, we're all loved and we're all worthy. Why are we not manifesting what we know we deserve on some level? And that content, that information, and those answers can be accessed by virtue of making better friends with the subconscious mind. So I think it's a very important part of the process if we want to live as empowered human beings on this particular planet.
So superconscious is kind of like you're mentioning, like the water, around us, the ocean, that the iceberg is floating around, and the water obviously sheds no judgment on the look of the iceberg or the quality of the iceberg, just like the superconscious has no judgment upon us. It just accepts us as we are, who we are, no matter what. Is that correct?
That's a good way of putting it. I think so. I think that's absolutely true. And as we make friends, again, with our subconscious mind and superconsciousness, and we can call that the universe, God, whatever you want to refer to that as, spirit, creative intelligence. And I think we can navigate either from ego, which is an acronym for edging God out, or IGO, inviting God only. And from my personal experience, and again, we have to all do this for ourselves. I recommend being like a spiritual scientist. Take what works for you, leave the rest. What has worked for me is living from the posture of I go, inviting God only, knowing that in truth, the universe, superconscious mind, is loving and does want the best for us, to make friends with that and to relax into that state. When I decided to do that, my life definitely shifted for the better. I think it was Einstein that said you have to answer this question for yourself, and it's the most important question. Is the universe a safe and loving place or not? And when I was first asked that, my answer was absolutely not. Look at all these terrible things that have happened to me. Look at all the things that happen to people out there that are innocent and animals. And then it occurred to me, well, wow, if that's my deep subconscious belief, maybe that's why my life isn't working very well. I'm on this foundation of fear. So I decided to be like a scientist and pretend for a little while, maybe a week or two, that I was indeed safe and loved and supported. And almost immediately, I started to experience some God winks and some grace. I started making some money. I started feeling a little better. So I decided to continue to experiment with that. And as I have, my life has continued to improve. So I would invite anybody just to consider that. What would that mean to be able to relax and receive love? That the universe is indeed safe and supportive and does want you to be happy. Just play with that and lean into that and see how it feels. It's my preferred way of navigating at this point in time. That's for sure.
Yeah, I fully agree. Well, we'll be back with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski. I want to talk a little bit more about the loving and the safe universe that we live in, and also some of the powers that drives us and who we are. Talking a little bit about the subconscious mind and the bottom of the iceberg, which obviously is the majority of who we are. We'll be right back. Welcome back to HealthMade Radio. With me, I have Dr. Tammi Baliszewski talking about manifesting from the inside out, whether it's prosperity, love, or anything that we need. We talked about a little bit about the subconscious mind. We have the image of the iceberg, and the tip of the iceberg being then the reality that we see. But that tip of the iceberg is always created or driven by the subconscious mind, what is lying beneath. Tell me a little bit more about that power and the importance of the subconscious mind.
Well, we experience a lot of things as children which program our subconscious mind. And I'm of the belief that we are all incarnating with content that goes back even further. Whatever it is our soul didn't complete or clear, whatever lessons we need to learn, whoever we didn't forgive, we're going to have to come back and deal with it in this lifetime. Whatever we have done will be done to us in this lifetime. So we all incarnate with a certain amount of stuff on our plate. Whatever you didn't want to finish and complete, whatever you didn't want to eat, you're going to come in with this time. So it's not a level playing field as we look around at people on planet Earth. We all have our own personal individual contracts, an unfinished business, if you will. And then our childhood will perpetuate whatever was on our plate. And we can do a lot of great work by connecting with the inner child. So much of our subconscious beliefs, our mindset, we can look back at something that maybe happened when we were a kid and maybe decided that life wasn't safe, that love wasn't possible. Perhaps we're sitting there eating our Cheerios when we're 2 years old and our parents get in a fight, and we think to ourselves, love is not possible. Love is scary. Life is not safe. Whatever decision we made when we were 1 or 2 or 3 years old can really be creating the foundation for the rest of our life. And again, a lot of us experience things that weren't fair, that weren't justified, that weren't loving. And that, again, can set us up for believing that life isn't on our side. So as we go back and connect with our inner child and do this subconscious clearing of fear and bringing love and compassion to the places inside that hurt from our more mature state, we can really heal from the bottom up and from the outside in. We can really untangle some of those things that have kept us constricted and stuck. So it is such a vital piece of the puzzle if we want to live more empowered and satisfying lives.
So this inner child, it sounds like you do a lot of work then with the inner child. I mean, why is that so important?
Well, it is one of the archetypes and subpersonalities that every single one of us has. There is a child in all of us that truly longs for love and acceptance. And if we're not aware of this, if we're not conscious of this, we will look outside of ourselves for that experience of acceptance and love. We come from love. We're here to love. We're born to give and receive love. But if we don't know that and we don't give it to ourselves, we will be looking from the outside in for that experience. And so often what we do as human beings is we look to create relationships with other human beings that perpetuate the unfinished business or the more challenging dynamics of the more challenging parent. And so, if we're not conscious of this, we tend to make not great romantic choices for ourselves. If we can stop for a little while, just like I did when my relationship with my fiance came apart, instead of looking for somebody else to replace him, I decided to start to cultivate a more respectful, loving relationship with myself. And again, when the teacher's ready, the student appears, and when the student's ready, the teacher appears. And I started to learn about the inner child work, and I realized that was who I was looking for. That inner child was wanting to be accepted and adored. And to try to find a man to do that for me before I've done that for myself was creating the situation where I was making not the healthiest choice for myself. So if we are aware of this part, we can start to give it attention, and we can start to cultivate a relationship with them simply by asking questions and saying, I want to get to know you. I want to pay attention to you. I'm sorry these things happened to you when you were a child, and I'm here for you now. I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, but I didn't know. Start to cultivate that friendship. This can really put us on a different ground within ourselves, one that is solid rather than fractured, one that is like a rock instead of like sand. So we're building a solid structure rather than a house of cards in our lives.
It seems like a lot of us, we carry, talking about childhood and inner child, we carry, whether it's our own shame or guilt or the shame or guilt of our parents. People have hurt us, and we have a hard time forgiving that. So it seems like we have all this luggage that we carry. What are some of the practical tools that a person can go and do in order to be able to kind of heal from all of that guilt and shame? And because that seems to be some of the shackles that we have to throw away, and then also be able to forgive the people that have hurt us.
That's such a good point, and it really does seem to boil down to that. And it seems often people don't want to forgive others because they don't want to have to be faced with their own guilt and shame. And forgiving ourselves, that can be a really challenging piece of the healing puzzle, but that's where the real freedom can start to occur, when we really understand that things did happen to us, and it wasn't because we weren't lovable or worthy, even though we were treated sometimes with things that maybe were less than kind, situations that were less than safe. If we can say, to that young one inside of ourselves, it wasn't your fault. You are worthy. You are lovable. I'm sorry you had to experience this. And the guilt and shame, we all carry it. Again, that's a burden and part and parcel of this human experience. To be able to sit with ourselves in those uncomfortable moments and say there's nothing to be ashamed of. You are loved from the perspective of God. I mean, maybe human beings have failed us, but God is unfailing in his love. And if we can start to open our mind to that possibility, and we can start to relax into that and receive that, we can start to bring a healing balm to the wounds. We can start to invite that life force that helps us. Like when we cut our skin and it heals, it can start to heal us emotionally and mentally, and again, line us up spiritually. And that is why I do the guided meditations, because it can be hard to do this for ourselves and alone with ourselves. But if we have somebody to journey with us, it can make the terrain more clear. It can light our way. So my intention with my books is to be a touchstone for healing. They are interactive guides. It's not just my story and stories of others that have made this journey successfully, but it's filled with exercises at the end of chapters so people can start to really delve in to this experience and relationship with their deeper selves and inner child, to start to bring that healing balm and to bring awareness and consciousness and compassion to their own particular stories and life experiences.
That's what I love about your books, both of your books. They're such practical guides. They guide you through what exercises and things you need to do in order to be able to move through your own blocks. Because what I've seen with patients, frequently they try to avoid what it is that they need in order to be able to heal. Because anytime they go to a wounded area or to where the disease is, that is where the uncomfortable, it's uncharted territory where they don't know how to move through this. And that's why it's so important to have somebody, you're talking about guided meditation, you having somebody to guide you through that territory that is scary, and putting your trust in somebody that can help you and have done this before and know how to get you out to the other side. So I love about that, what you do with private consultations, and also your book, and also now the free ebook that you have on your website, The Path to Prosperity. I think that's so powerful and important.
It's my honor, it's my pleasure, it's my privilege, and it's actually my life purpose. Wow. So I love doing this work, and for the people that it resonates, my way of being and speaking resonates. It is why I'm here at this point. I've gotten to higher ground. I'm enjoying my life. It's wonderful. But the circle of success is not complete until we, I think, support others in getting to higher ground. So, again, it's my greatest joy.
Absolutely. And what are some of the main principles? Because there's so much. I mean, you have the guided meditations. We touched upon that, connecting with our inner child and seeing where with the hurt, the guilt, the shame, the lack of forgiveness, all the traumas that have that we carry within, that is also part of the subconscious mind, so to say. But what are some, in addition to that, what are some of the main principles in the power of manifestation? Because people want to manifest prosperity. I mean, we love being in touch with ourselves, but we also don't want to stress about, how I'm going to make this next car payment or house payment or feed my children. That is part of reality. Or, how am I going to be able to be loved?
Yes. Well, that's a really good question. And I think some of it comes down to, are you really clear about what you want? And do you know you're worthy of what you want? So often I see people have dueling intentions. And I had this myself. Yes, I want to be successful. I want to be able to pay my bills and not worry and stress and stuff. But when I really sat with it, there was a part of me that didn't want that, because I had experienced a lot of very wealthy people that weren't kind, and I essentially threw the baby out with the bathwater. So I had to get very clear about what I want, and then I had to get rid of any reason why I didn't either deserve it or maybe why I didn't want it. Getting rid of those dueling intentions is so powerful. Another thing I think is so helpful when we're struggling, be it financially or in relationships, it's easy to go to that place and feel like a victim. Like, maybe I'm not worthy, maybe I'm not loved, maybe I'm stupid, or life isn't fair. We get angry or go into victim consciousness. What I found to be very helpful when we're in those moments of discomfort, to go within and ask ourselves, what is it my soul really wants me to learn right here? What is it my soul really wants me to know right here? And to glean that wisdom, to sit with that and let the inner knowing, the inner truth bubble up. Because again, we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And we're not here just to get, accumulate, acquire. That will make us very ego-based beings. What we're here to do is grow as souls. So when we die, Dr. Michael, we don't take all the stuff with us. We take our soul level learning with us. So when we're in discomfort, that's where we really learn the most. Unfortunately, it seems to be the case. We learn more through our pain than our joy. But as we learn from our pain, we can get to the place of more joy. So to be able to go into the place when we're in discomfort and say, what's my soul want me to learn? And if our soul gets what it wants, I have found sometimes I can shift back into the more comfortable place of manifesting what it is I want and my goals, and still maintain that really humble and authentic connection with the divine. Stay in that place of humility. Because I know for me, I didn't want to live another ego-based life. But I do believe if we go for God, all things can be added unto thee. So though my life from the outside in, maybe it doesn't look that much different than years ago when I was successful and in a relationship, it feels so different because I'm so aligned and connected with that something greater. And my inner child is so important. I see it like the inner child's on my lap, and I'm sitting on God's lap. If I take care of these two relationships, it's like being in the eye of the storm. There may be storms, but I am aligned. I am connected, and I can watch the storms without stepping out and being beat up by the storms.
That's wonderful. It's such a powerful image. When we'll be back, we'll chat a little bit more with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski about the power of manifestation. We're back with Dr. Tammi Baliszewski, the author of Manifesting Love from Inside Out and Manifesting Prosperity from the Inside Out. Tammi, you are also the host for a very popular radio show called Journey to Center, and you've been doing that for about 9 years. Why did you choose that name, and who do you interview, and why do you do this show?
I love radio. And yes, I've been doing it for 9 years. I was interviewed 9 years ago by a gentleman that created Empower Radio about my book, Manifesting Love. And afterwards he goes, you're a great speaker. I think you've got great content. I would like to give you your own show. And initially I was very hesitant. It was like, no, I'm not ready for this. It felt very scary. But as I sat with it, my no came more from the fear of stretching out of my comfort zone rather than it wasn't a fit, which I think is always good to check in. Why do we say yes and why do we say no? And is it really resonating for us on a deep level? And is it we're afraid to expand, or is it just not what our soul wants us to do? So I realized it was just scary, and it was time for me to step up and expand, and it takes courage to do this. And so Journey to Center, to me, again, that is as a mandala artist, it's about residing in the eye of the storm. It's staying in that connection and that alignment with something greater. The same energy that can move the planets around the sun and turn embryos into babies can take care of our lives, but not without our invitation and consent and constant desire and intention. So that's Journey to Center. It's staying in that place of alignment despite the chaos that we experience on this planet sometimes. My intention is to interview authors, teachers, healers, uplifters, people that can give our listeners tools and techniques and information to live more inspired, empowered, and joy-filled lives. So I'm very excited about getting you back on my show, Dr. Michael, to share your wisdom about health and healing and wholeness.
It will be my pleasure. I've every time that we've been on either side of being the interviewer or the interviewee, I loved every moment. Being on your show or you being on the couple of TV shows that I've had. It's always been such a pleasure, and it's always so much knowledge and enlightenment that comes out from that.
Yes, it's so much fun to dance and play and speak and share with you, and I always get great content, and I always feel inspired and energized afterwards. So, yes, I'm looking forward to our continued dance.
Absolutely. So, in closing, I know we can talk about this for hours and days and weeks, and we still wouldn't have been able to scratch the surface. So, in closing, for the audience, what are some of the additional tools that you can think of? That some practical things that the listener can go and do right now in regards to manifestation.
Yes. I think creativity is an important quality. What is it that brings you joy? Not for the sake of a product, but for the sake of the process. And we can often look at what we did as a child, what brought you joy. Often as kids, we don't think about, I should do this today. We are just in our connection. We are just in our heart. We are just in those deeper theta, alpha brainwave states. We're in our joy. So what brings you joy? Being in nature can be a very healing thing. The heartbeat of the world is theta, and it's a beautiful place to be. We can sit and we can meditate. A simple thing we can do is like ask yourself inwardly, what is the most healing color for me to bask in right now? And whatever color comes forward in your mind's eye, just sit with that and let that wash down over you, imbue into every organ and cell and atom. And perhaps you can consider, what's a healing symbol for me to sit with right now? And perhaps something shows up in your mind's eye. Maybe that's something you want to find as a touchstone to help you, to remind you to turn inward and connect with your heart more often. Or perhaps a symbol comes forward in your mind's eye that looks like an image. Perhaps it's a mandala or something that you can create. The subconscious mind loves ceremony. And there's so many ways to tap into this relationship through creativity, through turning inward, through asking open-ended questions. What is it my soul wants me to experience or know or learn? To live life as a question keeps us in that really open state where the answers can show up with grace and ease. And we can start to cultivate that relationship with our inner reality and with the divine. And from there, life can be such an exquisite and joy-filled adventure.
That's really powerful. Yes, as we, it seems as we become adult, so to say, we forget that creativity, we forget that playfulness. We think adult is that we gotta shoulder all these responsibilities. We gotta work. We gotta take care of our kids. And it's all these responsibilities, and we lose a touch of that inner creativity of who we are, which is actually that power where manifestation comes from. So we lose, the more we try to create, or what should I say, the more we try to make money or try to work, the less we get in touch with that creative side that makes work easy.
Yes. When we live more from our mind, where fear resides, rather than from the heart, where love resides, the more we will struggle and the more we will suffer. So how can you settle into the heart? And for me, that is joy, that is animals, that is creativity. As we live more from the heart and the fear takes the back seat, we can be inspired. We start to expand. And because water finds its own level, as we ascend in our consciousness and live from those higher vibrations of love and peace and joy, we attract and are attracted to people that are a nice fit and to opportunities that bring us prosperity and fulfillment and joy, and we live a healthier, more vibrant, vital life. So how can we go higher in our loving, deeper in our heart connections, and expand in our wisdom? And for me, this is the path, and it starts by setting the intention and then looking for the books, looking for the guided meditations, listening to the information that brings us joy and then inspires us, and having more fun. Having more fun. I think that needs to be priority in our lives. Absolutely and for sure. It will bring you life, it will bring you joy, it will bring you prosperity, it will bring you love.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for your work and helping people connect with their authentic self. I strongly suggest that you listeners go to TammiBPhD.com and download her free ebook, The Path to Prosperity. That's all for today. I'm Dr. Michael Karlfeldt with HealthMade Radio. Health is what you make it. Health is what you make it.